Welcome back to the Bears Baseball Network. We've got our corner outfield preview for the 2023 season today. And this is a very fun show because a lot of these situations, obviously we're talking about two positions, both left and right. So a lot of these situations haven't been decided. A lot of battles going on in these positions today. So a lot of fun players to talk about. Once again, we are going to start going over the varsity corner outfield situation for every single age. Then we're going to dive into some prospects and then some sleepers and breakouts. Very exciting show today. And let's get it started with 18U. Floyd. The corner outfield situation, Eddie Hoganmiller, Nathan Sandler, Chase Acker, Sam Wortham, a lot of good names here. KJ, I want to throw this one to you to start. Sam Wortham, a guy who's had a pretty good winter league for you, a guy who I think maybe was a sleeper a little bit last fall. I think he was a little bit better than people give him credit for. Give me your thoughts on Sam Wortham going into this season.
Yeah, Sam can kind of do everything well. He's a pretty good defensive outfielder. He takes good at bats. He can hit for power. He's got good speed. And he can even throw a couple innings on the mound for you. So this guy's an all-around player. So I think they're excited to have him in that outfield mix.
Yeah, and another guy in this outfield, Eddie Hoganmiller, obviously, Bernie, one of the guys who's been a big star in the Bears, getting a chance on this 18U squad. What do you think about Eddie Hoganmiller? You know, this last summer for him, do you think he's got one more big season in him?
Yeah, I think he's got one more big season in him. Eddie's one of those guys that, man, when he's on, he is a top 10, top 5 hitter in the Bears. That's how good he is when he's on. But yeah, he's a great outfielder as well. Good defensively out there.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a very stacked outfield, obviously, with Matt Floyd patrolling center. Any of these guys in the corners, I think, will be a very strong outfield, especially from the defensive side. I mean, Wortham, Sandler, and Hoganmiller, all very good defensive outfielders. And then, of course, offensively, I mean, you know what you're going to get from Eddie. Chase Acker was a monster last year with the bat. And then Sam Wortham, who I think has been sneaky good, you could see him taking a step forward. And then Nathan Sandler's kind of been that old reliable player for them for the last little while. So a very exciting outfield kind of quartet there in the corner outfield for 18U. Let's go ahead and move on to 16U. And Bernie, a exciting group here for your team here, 16U Burnsville. I want to talk about a guy who I think has had a very hard-working winter, a guy who I considered a big sleeper last year, and that is Aiden Warndell. This guy can really do it all. You know, a very good defensive outfielder out there, but I think both me and you, Bernie, see some upside in his back going into this season.
I mean, yeah, Aiden's kind of always been that guy who he does everything right. He is an above-average defender in the outfield. He's above-average contact guy at the plate. He's a good base runner. He's a really smart player. But I think this year you could see maybe the power develop just a little bit, and he can become an above-average, good bat for that 16U Burnsville squad.
Yeah, I like his bat a lot. I think he could definitely take a step forward this year. But defensively, I mean, he's going to be a gold-gloved caliber type corner outfielder out there. And obviously, I think he's going to fill in at center field whenever Fred Smith's not out there as well. KJ, want to throw this next one to you. Oliver Saxon, another big bat in this outfield. You've had to coach against him in the BWL. Give me some thoughts on Oliver Saxon. He's had a very good winter league.
Yeah, Oliver's had a good league. This guy just takes gritty at bats. He's faced Mac Floyd, who's arguably one of the best pitchers in the Bears, and he's getting hits. He's fighting off pitches. He's taking walks. He's just having really good at bats, and we've even seen some power come out of him in the BWL. So I think he's going to be an exciting hitter for that Bernie squad.
Yeah, especially, getting him to hit in that top of the order. Maybe a little bit of a different environment for him because right now, BWL, he's scrapping for at-bats at the bottom of the order. When he just gets put in that situation where he's just a star and gets to kind of get as many at-bats as he can handle, I think he could be a big star for that team. Wyatt Groupie, another name who could fill in the corner outfield for this team. A guy who's been in the Bears for a long time. Going to be interesting to see what he can do at the plate as well. But that 16U Burnsville outfield going to be a pretty exciting group, honestly, with Aiden Warndell, who I see with a lot of upside, and then Oliver Saxon, who I think a lot of people could see having a very good season. Moving on to 15U, again, another very exciting group. Jack Roberts, obviously the big bat in this group. He's going to spend some time at catcher, but with Ties Azaweta there and maybe the EH spot being filled by another player, Jack is definitely going to see some time in the outfield. But the other three in this group, Jackson Dormeyer, Tyler Hall, Sam Dollins, all three of these guys, I think, all varying levels of upside. But KJ, I want to start with you on this one. Tyler Hall, been a guy on your BWL team, a guy who's probably more known for his pitching, but he did have a very good fall season last year with the bat, and of course defensively he's very solid out there. What are your thoughts on Tyler Hall?
Yeah, from the at-bats I've seen from Tyler, he does put up really good at-bats. He's not going to, impress you with the power, but he's a gritty little hitter. He'll get you big hits. He's run the bases really well. I've had him even when he's not hitting, he's running for my BWL team. He's a very good base runner. He's a good hitter. I haven't seen much of him in the outfield, but he's got speed. He'll put up good at bats, and he's going to be a dangerous hitter on that top of the order.
Yeah, I would say of these four guys, Tyler Hall's probably the best defender out there. And then the question is, how well is he going to hit? I mean, this last fall, he had a very strong season. Hit, I believe, up near 380. Was very good at the top of that Dalton order. If he can hit like that with his glove, he's going to be a mainstay in that lineup. Bernie, I want to throw this next guy to you because I know this is a guy that you've liked a lot historically. I believe he was on your breakout list last year. And I think, honestly, Bernie, when I went back and looked at his stats, he did kind of break out, but he was a little bit overshadowed by his teammates, and I'm talking about Jackson Dormeyer. Looking at Jackson, Bernie, last year, if you go from 2021 to 2022, his strikeout rate dropped. He struck out less, and he hit for more power. That's tough to do. JD had a very solid season, kind of got overlooked. Give me your thoughts on Jackson Dormeyer going into this season.
I mean, Jackson's a kid I've liked for a really long time now. He works very hard. I think that he can just take that next step. I had him on my breakout list last year. You talked about how his strikeout cut down, extra base hits went back up. I think if he continues that trend, he can insert himself back into that top 5 hitter on the Dalton squad and be a real productive bat for them.
Yeah, and Bernie, it was not too long ago, what was his injury? Was it a broken leg? Did he break his leg?
He had some massive injury.
Yeah, some massive lower half injury that if before that injury, he was legitimately a top 10, maybe even top 5 hitter in the entire Bears organization. We haven't quite seen him get back to that level, but I think last year he was a very, very reliable bat. Had some weekends where he looked like one of the best hitters of that Dalton squad. If he can put it all together, I think he could get back to that top 15 conversation in the entire Bears organization. Ton of upside there with that guy. Moving into 14U, and I'm going to be honest, I think 14U, this 14 Floyd squad, looking like to be a very, very strong team this year. Obviously, a 60-win season last year. Was it 60 wins or did they get 50? I think a 50-win season last year. They're looking for that 60-win season this season. But I will say, I think the biggest question mark for this team is in the corner outfield. Obviously, you got Willerette in center. You've got a very strong infield. The question's going to be the corner outfield. So a lot of interesting guys here. The 4 names we got that are going to be in the front of the conversation: Ivan Saxon, Logan Eckert, Shane Brinkman, and Jonathan Smedra. And KJ, I want to start with you here. This is a guy that I know you've liked a little bit in free swing. He's taken some really strong swings, and that's Jonathan Smedra. This is a guy who had a little bit of a health problem at the beginning of last year, kind of derailed his season, was never really able to catch traction. But a guy who I think with a full season, if he can really start to gain some traction, he could be a very strong player, Jonathan Smedra.
Yeah, Jonathan's a big free swing hitter. As we've seen, the guys who hit the biggest numbers in free swing typically have big numbers on the field, and Jonathan, he's consistently putting up big numbers in free swing. He swings really hard. He's got a great approach to the plate. It's going to be interesting to see, where he fits in that order. You can assume he's not going to be, in the top 5, so he's down there in the order. They throw him a lot of fastballs. They could be in trouble. I think he's going to surprise people with how much power he's got.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I mean, big, strong kid. I'll tell you what, I run the practices for this team. He's starting to look pretty good in the outfield. I think defense was kind of his weak point last year. He's starting to look really good out there. If he can play a serviceable outfield and hit for the power that we think he could be a big player for this team. 2 of the other guys in this outfield, Shane O'Matic, we talked about a lot. He's kind of a question mark. We know the upside is there. The playing time's not going to be there to start with, but he's going to have to earn more. And I think, at least on the BBN show, we definitely believe in this guy, a guy we like a lot. Logan Eckert, another guy who I think has been a consistent hitter for this team. Obviously much more known for his pitching, but he's moving out to the outfield to kind of fill that role, and I think there's going to be a chance for him to take some more at-bats. But Bernie, I want to touch on another guy, Ivan Saxon. This is a guy who at times, Bernie, has looked like one of the best hitters in the entire Bears organization. Definitely a free swinger up there, maybe sometimes to a fault, swinging at pitches that he can't touch. But I'll tell you what, he finds a way to get hits, Bernie. Give me your thoughts on Ivan Saxon.
Ivan saw a lot of time in the outfield last fall with Wyatt Port taking up a lot of innings on the plate. He's got a lot better out there defensively in the outfield, and we all know the bat's going to be there. I think he is one of at least top 6, top 5 bat on that 14 Floyd squad. He's going to get the at-bats, so I think he'll be out there in the outfield as a starter.
Yeah, I'm excited to see Ivan Saxon can do. A very consistent hitter, and I think he's going to be a mainstay in that lineup. Moving into 13U, this is a very interesting conversation because next week we have our center field preview, and there are 3 guys who are kind of battling for center field. So I have a list of 5 names here who are battling for the corners. That doesn't account for those 3 guys. Obviously 2 of those guys are going to have to play the corners who don't win the center field job. So a very crowded outfield at 13U. But looking at this list, Lucas Velchek, Mason Gebhart, Lucas Welburn, Luke Driscoll, and Logan Payne. I think some varying degrees of high upside guys, high floor guys, some prospects who could break in. But I want to start with a guy with UKJ, a guy who is on your BWL team, a guy I know the BBN loves, guy who works hard, and that is Luke Driscoll. This is a guy who's really trying to step into his own. He broke into that varsity team last year, never really found a way into the starting lineup, but his at-bats have just gotten better and better, and his bat, if it plays, he could be a big impact back for this 13 Floyd squad.
Yeah, he's going to be one of the guys, man, who's you're putting him out there for his bat, not necessarily his defense. You know, he's a pretty good catcher. He can play some outfield, but, you know, if you're going to have him in the lineup, it's because of that bat. He's showing a lot of upside with that bat. You know, he's another guy in free swing. He's constantly breaking records. I don't know if we've had many guys break as many records as Luke has in the last couple months. So, you know, when he hits the ball, he hits it really hard. You know, it's just finding that consistency of, you know, making contact more often, hitting for more power.
Yeah, there are very few people in the entire Bears organization who work as hard as Luke Driscoll does. He wants it bad. He wants to be a great baseball player bad, and he's definitely taken stride after stride after stride over the past 12 months. Another guy in this outfield that I am very excited about this year is Mason Gebhardt. He's a guy who has all the physical tools, very strong. You could see him hitting double-digit home runs. The question is, can he break into this lineup? Obviously, it's a very crowded lineup. But if he takes at-bats like he started to in BWL, his at-bats have progressively gotten better and better and better. If he can really mature those at-bats and hit against these top pitchers, I could definitely see him having that huge season that we're all thinking about. Lucas Wilburn, another guy, high floor guy, a guy who is going to be safe out there. He's also going to play some first base. He's going to pitch. Good defender, very high floor. He's going to hit 400, you know, with very little doubts. A guy I like a lot in Lucas Wilburn. And then Logan Payne, who's looking to make his way onto this top team, definitely a high upside bat. But Bernie, one more guy I want to talk about in this outfield is Lucas Velchek. Obviously, got the electric arm. He's going to be on this team as a pitcher regardless of how good he hits. But I think there's some signs, Bernie, that he could be more than just a PO and really his bat take a step forward. Give me your thoughts on Velchek as a hitter going into this season.
Yeah, man, I think this the key to Velchek is how much he can lay off the off-speed pitches. I was at the BWL this past Saturday. I saw firsthand his first at bat. He went up there and swung at 3 curveballs in the dirt, and it was not a very competitive at bat. He was 3 pitches and out. But then his next at bat, he goes up there, he takes curveball in the dirt, he gets a fastball, he crushes it back up the middle. And I know I was talking to Robbie about this the other day that when Velchek lays off a curveball, you know he's locked in, right? And he continued to have a big day on Saturday. So I think that's going to be the key to Lucas this season.
Yeah, a guy who definitely, again, double-digit home run upside. That's how good this guy could be. If he reaches that potential, he could be a very, very scary bat in a very scary lineup at 13U. Moving into 12U, some very interesting names here. Diego Buccio, he's been a guy who the BBN has loved a lot. Josh Collier, maybe a little bit more known for his arm, but definitely a very clutch hitter to say the least. And then Cam Bernstein, a guy who has kind of moved all the way around the field, a definitely high upside player. And Bernie, I want to stick with you on this one and send you to Cam Bernstein. This is a guy, Bernie, who at times has looked like one of the best hitters in the Bears. At times has looked like he's very inconsistent. At times he's looked like a great fielder. At times looked like a bad fielder. He's kind of been all over the place. If Cam Bernstein can find that consistency, Bernie, one of the best hitters in the Bears. But give me your thoughts on Cam Bernstein going into this season.
Yeah, I think Cam's gonna be on the outfield. He's a decent defender out there. He'll do his job at least. And then at the plate, like you said, just find that consistency. I know he's had a decent BWL this winter, so I think he should continue that into the season.
Yeah, Cam, I believe, is second in the BWL, tied for second in home runs, and that's despite not necessarily getting as many at-bats as everybody else. He is a very scary hitter, and when he's on, I don't know that there's anybody who matches him on that 12U team. And KJ, I want to throw this to you, another guy, very high upside, maybe a little inconsistent still, trying to find his legs. That's Diego Buccio, a guy the BBN has talked about a lot, a guy we like a lot, and a guy who definitely, when he's on, one of the best hitters on the team. Can he find that consistency? But give me your thoughts on Diego Buccio going into the season.
Yeah, I think last year Diego kind of worked his way. You know, he started on the second team, worked his way, and by the end of the year he was in the top half of the lineup with the top team. So, you know, this year he's going to start on the top team. Obviously, he's going to be in the top half to start the season. I think if he can get, you know, even half of the development he got last year this season, he could be, you know, top 3 hitter on that team. But I thought his defense has taken a huge stride this offseason. Kind of last year when the ball was hit to him, he kind of cringed a little bit, and you put him in there for his offense. But, you know, now there's definitely some trust there with Diego. If the ball's hit to him, you know, we don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, 100%. Diego potential for him to have a big season this year with the bat and much more serviceable in the outfield as well. Josh Tyler, the other one on this team, it seems like Josh, it's crazy. He seems to get the hits off the big pitchers in the big spots, and then sometimes a little inconsistent, in a blowout game against an easier pitcher. It's weird how it works like that with Josh. Maybe just a bit of a focus thing, but I've seen this guy make big plays in the outfield, get big hits in clutch situations. If he could really hone in and focus in every single at-bat, I could see him having a much bigger role in this team as a hitter and potentially having a very good season. It was not that long ago, maybe 2-3 years ago, where Josh Tyler was one of the biggest prospects in the Bears organization, and I think he can get back to that form as a hitter, but definitely going to be a role player on this team. His defense, I think, will play him well in the outfield as well. Moving on to 11U, Bernie. This outfield, I think, is going to be the kind of the question mark for this team. A lot of different guys vying for it, but the two guys we're going to talk about today, Parker Cates and Rowan Domschroeder. Parker, obviously, a catcher as well, going to spend the rest of his time in the outfield, and Rowan Domschroeder, a very reliable glove out there. I want to start with Rowan, Bernie, because this is a guy who kind of came out of nowhere last fall, got onto this top team, really made the most of his opportunities. Give me your thoughts on Rowan going into this season.
Yeah, man, I'm excited for Rowan. He might be, he's definitely the better defender out of him and Parker. No offense to Parker, but he's a sure-handed glove out there. And at the plate, he's consistently gotten better. Last summer at 10U, he was a not great hitter to say the least. And last fall, he was starting the second team on 11U Myers. Was one of the best hitters in that squad. Came up to 11U Burnsdale and continued to produce. So I'm excited to see what Rowan's going to do this season.
Yeah, and then Parker Cates on the other side, a guy that we talked about in the catcher preview that – the question mark for him is going to be his bat. I think you're going to have to live and die with his glove. And his glove is getting better, but I definitely think his bat is a little bit of ahead of his glove right now, both at catcher and in the outfield. But if he hits, he's going to play. Like we've said about several of these guys in the corner outfield, they're offensive first players, and that's definitely going to describe Parker Cates this year. A guy that I think we like a lot, a guy that we could see taking a big step forward, and a guy who's definitely going to have the at-bats, at least at the start of the season, he's going to have the at-bats to prove what he can do. And a guy that I think we're very hopeful for going into this year. All right, let's move into a couple prospects. And KJ, I want to start with you, a 12U prospect, a guy who's been around for a little while, who's really, I think, worked hard this offseason and has had a very nice offseason in Carson Walsh. KJ, give me your thoughts on Carson Walsh going into this year.
Yeah, I think Carson Walsh has had one of the best off seasons from a 12U guy. This guy has taken major strides. His bat has really skyrocketed this offseason. From what I've seen, he's hitting a lot more balls harder. He could have some power numbers come this season, and he's playing a consistent outfield. He's going to see a lot of time in that outfield for Burns, so I'm excited to see what he can do there. And he's getting in pitching a little bit, which could earn him more at bats. So this guy has really taken has gone to the next step in every facet of the game. So I'm excited for how Carson's season is going to go.
Yeah, Carson, when you look at that 12U Burns squad, which is where I think he's going to start the season, he's probably the most reliable defender in that outfield. Definitely, you can make that argument. And if his bat can play, he's definitely going to have the playing time on that Burns squad to really show what he can do. And if he can hit, man, and he's reliable in the outfield, we just said, 12U, that corner outfield, maybe is a little bit questionable, at least compared to the rest of the roster. If he could hit and he could play a reliable outfield, he could maybe find himself on that top team come maybe late summer or next fall. But a guy who's definitely worked hard this offseason. Bernie, I want to throw it to you, another prospect. This guy, a 13U guy, a guy who I think a lot of the coaches have said good things about because he works hard, very great kid. I'm talking about Braden Miller. Bernie, give me your thoughts on this kid. Definitely a high upside player. It's just if he can clean up the fundamentals of the game right now.
Yeah, I think this guy is the definition of a prospect. You look at him, he's very big, he's a very strong kid, has a lot of power, but he just looks a little awkward to say the least. But I think you just give him a little bit of time in the system, and I think in a year from now we saw Braden Miller as it's a big power bat on either like a Bell squad or a Floyd squad.
Yeah, definitely. All the tools in the world, super fast, super strong, got that power speed combo. And when you watch him swing, he swings hard. He does look a little clunky in the outfield still, does look a little clunky at the plate, but that stuff can be cleaned up. That's just experience. Braden Miller's coming from a situation where he played maybe 15, 20 games a year, now going to be thrown to a situation where he's playing 80 games. You learn very quickly in that situation, and I think Braden could take a huge step forward this year, and I think could be a very exciting player going forward. The last player we're going to talk about here in the prospect section is going to be Steven Sheekus, a guy who I think has a chance to break camp with that Dalton squad. A very, very good outfielder defensively. And I think the bat, it's going to be a very good contact bat. The power maybe a little bit more questionable. But I think if he can earn his way onto that starting lineup, whether it be through starting the team or starting the year on Jackson and breaking into Dalton, or starting the year on Dalton bench and just breaking in the starting lineup, I could see Steven Sheekus taking advantage of that situation. Definitely a hard worker with some very nice tools there that he could turn into a starting role for that Dalton squad. All right, let's move into sleepers and breakouts to end the show. Again, a sleeper, a guy that maybe the general population is sleeping on a little bit, who we think could perform better than his expectations. A breakout is a guy who's going to go from the tier he's in and maybe go to the next one or 2 ones up. And the tier, superstar, star, starter, role player, prospect. And looking at our players here, definitely some guys in different tiers to start. Let's go ahead and start with the sleepers. And Bernie, I want to start with you here. A guy, 13U, a guy that I believe was on your sleeper list last year and definitely delivered. And I still think people are sleeping on him. Give me your sleeper for the corner outfield position.
Yeah, like you said, my sleeper is from 13U, and that would be Logan Payne. Like I said, I think he delivered last year, but I still think there's some consistency to be found with him. I think whether I don't know if he's going to break the Floyd team out of camp here or if he'll be on that Bell squad, but I think either way, he's on Bell, he's going to get a lot of at-bats, he's going to prove himself there, or if he's going to be on Floyd, he's going to start on the bench, and he's going to prove his way back into the lineup.
Yeah, a guy who moved to the outfield to kind of expand his defensive repertoire, a guy who played second base for a long time, now getting a chance in the outfield, and I think that's where he's going to find his home. Definitely, the power upside is unbelievable. I mean, one of the best power hitters in the entire Bears organization, age appropriate, and I think he could definitely find a way into that top team, whether it be breaking camp or finding his way in the middle of the summer. KJ, your sleeper, a 15U player, a guy we liked definitely last year, and I think is going to, at least, I think as of right now, probably going to break camp with the Dalton squad, but even if he starts on Jackson, I think will earn his way up very quickly, and that is Sam Dollins. KJ, give me your thoughts on your sleeper, Sam Dollins.
Yeah, Sam Dollins is a guy who kind of gets hurt by the BWL field because he just shoots balls into that beam and they get called outs, and real games are probably extra base hits. But Sam hits the ball really hard. He's actually shown a lot of good stuff on the mound this season in BWL, which could earn him some more at-bats as well. So, in a stacked Dalton lineup, they don't need, a superstar necessarily, but I think you slide Sam Dollins, he can be one of the, he's going to be a huge bottom-of-the-order hitter. You're not going to find many bottom-of-the-order hitters better than Sam Dollins.
Yeah, 100%, I agree. My sleeper is going to come from 14U, and it's a guy who, if you have been around me in the past couple weeks, I've been talking this guy up to anybody who would listen, and that is Dane Pastrana. I cannot say enough good things about this guy. He's been on my BWL squad. He was I don't even think he got drafted. I think I picked him up after the draft, and he's been a monster. He's probably been my 4th or 5th best hitter on my BWL team, and that's a surprise because he's very new to the Bears. Obviously, last fall was his first season. His bat has really come a long way. He's moved into the outfield where I think it suits his defensive skills a little bit better than when he was playing the infield. And a guy who, if he breaks camp with Driscoll, I think he's going to immediately show himself as one of the best hitters on the team. And if he breaks camp with Floyd, I think he's going to be challenging some of these corner outfielders for jobs. Because, again, I think the corner outfield is the question mark for that 14U Floyd squad. And I think Dane Pastrana could be the guy who really takes that job and runs with it if he gets the opportunity. Moving into breakouts, KJ, going to start with you this time. A guy on your 12U team, a guy who I think has a ton of upside we talked about. Give me your thoughts on Cam Bernstein, your breakout for this year.
Yeah, Bernie kind of touched on him earlier, but, I thought at the end of the season, Cam, kind of saw his job diminish a little bit. I know at the beginning, a couple years ago, he was a leadoff hitter starting shortstop. Then, he slowly got out of that shortstop role, moved to second. Then slowly got out of that leadoff role, and, at one point, he was kind of a role player. I think this year Cam's definitely worked really, really hard, and he's earned back his starting spot. He's going to start on that top team lineup. He's a guy who can play infield. We've moved into the outfield for this season. He's been working a lot out there, so he's kind of just finding his way out there in the outfield a little bit. But the big thing about him is his bat. As Robbie said earlier, he's tied for second in the BWL in homers without as many at-bats as the other two guys. So this guy's bat is going to keep him in the order all day. He's good on the bases. He can play good defense. He's going to be tolerable in the outfield. And, Cam's doing this against mostly 13U pitching. So I think when you move him back to 12U pitching, this guy's going to be really, really good, and he's going to have a huge season.
Yeah, I think that's what we can say about, when we talk about BWL, I think that sentiment you just echoed, KJ, about 12U hitters, 14U hitters, and 16U hitters, they've been facing mostly older hitters or older pitchers all Bears Winter League for the most part. So I think when those guys get to face pitchers their age, it's going to look like cake, and they're going to absolutely dominate. Bernie, going to go to your breakout player in your 16U squad, a guy who, again, has had a big BWL season. Give me your thoughts on Oliver Saxon going into this year.
Yeah, I think Oliver Saxon, I still think at the end of the season, I still think that most people consider him a starter, not even a star yet. But last fall, he was a monster. He batted well over 500 for that 16U Burnstone squad. And he batted leadoff for the last 2 or 3 weeks of the season. And then he goes into BWL as a 16U kid. Varsity versus freshman pitching are nothing alike. And he has seen a lot of good varsity arms this winter. He's hung with them. I mean, he has a couple home runs. He's been the best hitter out of the 16U Burnstone guys in the BWL. And I think when you put him back into that leadoff role for the Burnstone squad at the start of the summer season, I think he's going to flourish. He's going to be the star of the team. I think he's going to be very happy about it.
Yeah, very excited to see what Oliver Saxon will do back against 16U guys. My breakout's going to be coming from my 13U squad. It is Lucas Velchek. It's hard to say that this guy has anything but superstar potential. I would say he's more of a role player right now. Obviously, when he's on the mound, he's dominant. He's one of the best pitchers in the entire Bears. But as a hitter, he was probably more in that role player tier, and I could see him breaking in past star, and maybe even a superstar potential with this guy who could lead the Bears in home runs legitimately if he could just mature those at-bats, lay off the off-speed, maybe lay off that high fastball. If he could really mature and make pitchers throw fastballs in his zone, we could see him be a superstar. We talk about the big four in this 13 Floyd squad with the Meyer twins, Parker Els, and Jacob Mon. Lucas Velchek probably has a higher ceiling than all of them when you just take into account his size, his power, and what he could do at the plate. I could see this guy being a superstar, but even if he doesn't hit his entire potential, this guy could still be a 5'6" homer guy who's hitting 350, who's leading the team in doubles. There's a ton of upside for this kid at the plate, and I think he could be an absolute superstar. That's going to do it for our corner outfield preview for the 2023 season. Next week, we have our center field preview, home of some of the best players in the entire Bears organization. I could not be more excited for that one. But that's going to do it for this episode of the Bears Baseball Network, and we'll talk to y'all